How you doing, you handsome young man?
Just about as handsome and young as you are.
Just so the audience knows, Tom and I went to junior high and high school together in Overland Park, Kansas. So we're thrilled that you're here to join us. I'm going to do a brief introduction for everybody, and then I'll turn the camera around, and we can start chatting. Okay? So Tom here, Tom Kane is one of the most prolific and talented voice actors working in media today. You've certainly heard his voice in many things. He grew up in Overland Park, Kansas, and attended the University of Kansas. Among his many accomplishments, he's been a live announcer for the Academy Awards, has done probably thousands of commercials at this point. If you've ridden the monorail or visited Star Tours at Walt Disney World or Disneyland, you have heard Tom's voice telling you to mind the doors. He's most widely known for his work in animation, which includes playing the Chancellor in Tim Burton's 9, Magneto in Wolverine and the X-Men and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Fate of Two Worlds. He's been the voice of Iron Man and Ultron in Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow. He's Mr. Harriman, the house manager in Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends.
Yay!
And one of my favorite character names, he was Lord Monkey Fist on Kim Possible. Professor Utonium and him on the Powerpuff Girls. But he is most notable, of course, for his work in the Star Wars franchise, which goes all the way back to 1996. And this includes lead and supporting roles in almost every Star Wars video game. He's been narrator on many of the projects. He's appeared on camera as Imperial Captain Ozzik Stern, Lobot, and Kento Merrick. He's covered the voices of Boba Fett and C-3PO, and of course, he is the voice of the one and only Jedi Master, Yoda. So Tom, I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see the audience. We'll let you hear a little bit from you, and then we'll open it up to questions, okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce these fine young men sitting right next to you?
Well, I just got joined in my studio by my two sons, Landon and Logan. You guys say hi?
Hi.
They just woke up and are having some warm milk. Very fun.
I see the big daddy.
So anyway, hi guys, thanks for coming. So I'm here today for you. I'm going to answer your questions and tell you stuff that you want to know, even if you don't want to know it. So what would you like to know about being a voiceover guy in Hollywood and cartoons and the Academy Awards, all kinds of silly things? What would you like to know?
Tom, go ahead and give us a little bit about where you came from and how you got into this business.
Well, that's a good way to start. I was a kid born in Kansas City, Missouri. My grandfather was from Germany, and he had a thick German accent. And my mom tells me that even when I was like a 2-year-old, I would run around speaking in a German accent. And whatever Grandpa would say, I would mimic him. And my grandfather had a habit of watching the football games on Sunday, the Kansas City Chiefs. This is our team. And, every time a football player would do something really dumb, he'd sit there and yell at the TV in German. And no one spoke German in the house, so we didn't know that he was saying some really bad words. He was cussing in the German. He was cussing in German at the quarterback or whoever dropped the ball, and he'd be saying some. Well, so here I was, 2.5 years old, and I was running around the house going, and he would just sit there and go. And one day my mom said, what is he saying? Why are you laughing so much? He goes, you don't want to know what he's saying, but I'll tell you, he's got a good German accent. So apparently I was a good mimic, and from that point on, I would mimic what I heard on television. I would pay attention to the TV commercials and radio commercials when I was in a car, and every time I heard an interesting character voice, I would try to copy it. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually doing voiceovers. I mean, that's really what voiceover is. When you take a voice that you you hear, and it's not your natural voice, and you try to do a good job of imitating it. All of you at some point or other have tried to do, a cartoon character. You try to talk like, I don't know, Bugs Bunny, or a cartoon character like, the Terminator, is it, you gotta come with me if you want to live, that kind of stuff. And so, it makes a lot of sense that, everybody does that as a kid. I just kept doing it. I kept going on and on and on and on and on and on. And the older I got, the better I got at it. And by the time I was a 15-year-old, I thought, well, you know what? I sound like some of the people on television. And why, they get paid for it. Why don't I? So I actually just started calling local advertisers, that did, commercials and offering my services. I didn't realize I was being kind of insulting, I'd be like, calling someone up and saying, hi, I heard your commercial for the Waterbed Gallery, and it really sucked. And mine sounds a lot better, so if you'd like me to do your commercial, I'd be happy to. Well, what I didn't realize was that I was usually talking to the guy who did his own commercial, or it was his son or his nephew, and so I was being insulting, but I was only 15, I didn't realize it. But one day I got a call back from the American Cancer Society because they needed somebody to do one of their PSAs, which is a public service announcement. And they didn't have any money to pay anybody. And they thought I was a professional voiceover guy because on the phone I sounded like an adult. And so they told me when and where they'd rented a studio. It was, a big deal for them to spend that kind of money. My dad had to drive me because I didn't have a license yet. And of course, when we got there, they come up to him. And they give him, the script, and they start talking to him about it, and he's like, no, you want to talk to that guy. And they look over at this, chubby kid with his fringy cut-off jeans and his stained tennis shoes because they're, green because they've been cutting grass for the summer, and they were like, you're the kid we heard on the commercial? Yeah. Have you ever done this before? And I went, no, but I certainly could be worse than what you had. It sounded terrible. And I didn't realize I was talking about the receptionist there, but anyway. But yeah, they walked me back, and the engineer got me hooked up to the headphones and positioned in front of the microphone. And I was a 9th grader at this time, keep in mind. And I looked like a 9th grader. And while I was getting hooked up in front of the microphone, the producer who had hired me was getting his butt chewed on the other side of the glass by the creative director because they'd spent some real money, getting this thing put together. And, he was like, I could see through the glass, the guy was going, and the poor guy was going, and so I kind of took it that they were not, they assumed I was going to really suck. So I looked down and I read the copy through, and I said, would you like this in some kind of accent? And the creative director looked up and he goes, what? I said, would you like this in some kind of accent? And he goes, what do you mean accent? I said, well, I think this would sound like the Pepperidge Farms guy, the old man that does the Pepperidge Farms voices. And he goes, oh, you can talk like a 75-year-old man from New England, huh? And I'm like, yeah, can everyone, And he said, oh, well, let's hear that. So I went, it's funny, I still remember the commercial after 35 years. I go, every weekend, a couple dozen Kansas City families have a couple dozen garage sales. 1,000 Kansas City families are going to have just one garage sale. A very big garage sale. A sale so big, as a matter of fact, it'll make the walls of the Glenwood Manor Convention Hall bulge. We call it the Kansas City Garage Sale. All the proceeds go to the American Cancer Society, and all the bargains, well, those go to you. I did that. I looked up and I saw 3 adult men going. And I said, well, is that okay? And the engineer looks down and he goes, That was 29 seconds. Well, that's perfect. It's supposed to be 29 seconds. And they went, yeah, that's great, you know. So I did 2 more takes, and they were all smiles, and it went on the air. And then a week later, the same advertising agency hired me to do 5 TV spots for pay. And this time, the same thing happened. They talked to my dad. They thought it was him, and it was a different group of people. And no, it was him, and the whole thing went through, and all. But the difference was this time they had a contract, and they said, "Well, we're going to have your dad sign the paperwork because you're not 18 yet." So my dad started signing the paperwork, and all of a sudden he goes, "Tom." I said, "What?" He goes, "They're paying you." I'm like, "Oh, $20." You know, this is 1977, so this same summer Star Wars came out. Actually, it might have been the same month Star Wars came out. And I oh, great. I'm thinking like $20 or, you know, $30. And he goes, "No, they're paying you a lot." I'm thinking like, what, $50? Oh, really? Oh, I'm filling out, I'm signing some paperwork. And he goes, "They're paying you $1,100. Wow. And I couldn't put my brain around it. I'm like, well, is it 11 or is it 100? And all of a sudden I went, oh, I'm buying a car. So anyway, I went and did those commercials, and what I realized, though, after that session was that you could make some serious money doing this. $1,100 in 1977 was like $3,000 today. So that was like serious change.
Yep.
So we did the commercials, they were really happy, and my career was born. So I got by the time I got out of high school, I'd done probably 80 or 100 commercials.
Wow.
By the time I got out of college, I'd done 200 or 300. By the time I moved to Chicago after that, and I got a job as a writer at an ad agency and would audition on my lunch hour to do commercials for other ad agencies. And pretty quickly realized that I was making more money as a voiceover guy in my lunch hour than I was making as a producer. So in the course of being a producer, I worked with a lot of people in Los Angeles, and I talked to them about voiceover work, and I realized that's the place I needed to be because I wanted to do cartoons. So I gave my 2 weeks notice, and I was married by then. My wife and I packed up, and we went to Hollywood, and I stopped counting 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I stopped counting at 25,000
wow.
different commercials, trailers, TV promos, episodes of cartoons, everything, and that was a decade ago. So somewhere I'm right about now, probably done 35,000 or 40,000, which I'm told puts me in the top 10 people in the history of animation to do voiceover work. So woohoo, I'm a big deal, man.
Just a story from high school. We when we did our production of Our Town, we all sounded just like Tom because he was trying to do the New England accent. There was the Pepperidge Farm guy doing that. Do you remember doing that?
Oh yeah. It's like, well, every time we go downtown, we've got to figure out how to buy some of the marmalade so we can put something on our toast here. So this is sort of that New England, Boston, New Hampshire.